If you are a music fan like we are, stay up to date on everything going on in the world of music by listening to Sound Up with Mark Goodman and Alan Light. Join the Sound Up Pod Squad simply by liking our Facebook, following us on Blue Sky, Instagram, X, and signing up for our weekly newsletter at sounduppod.com.
This is Sound Up with Mark Goodman and Alan Light, the only music podcast that matters.
Welcome, welcome. I'm Mark Goodman.
And I am Alan Light.
This week on Sound Up, our first episode of 2025. And we've got actor and musician Michael Imperioli joining us to discuss the return of his band ZOPA.
Plus, we take a look at the most anticipated albums of 2025. And in music news, some crazy stuff. Flavor Flav becomes a college mascot. He also requested building a clock into his tombstone. So we've got some Flavor Flav news. And he rallied support for Sesame Street. That's a good man right there. Also, Neil Young not only announces a lost album from the 70s, but plans for a new album coming this year.
Plus, our new music picks of the week, listener comments, emails, and so much more.
If you're already a fan of the podcast or a member of the Sound Up Pod Squad, then you know we did promise some new things, some new changes with the new year.
And we will honor that. One of them will be the Sound Up Big Three. That is 3 rapid-fire questions that we're going to ask each of our guests based on topics that we found that you, our audience, like to talk about. So now the questions, they're going to kind of shuffle around a bit, but will all be, as you guessed, music related.
I get it. Roger's trying to pull the Throwback Thursday social media questions into the interviews. I get it. We're going to try this out today on the star of The Sopranos and The White Lotus, Michael Imperioli, who will be joining us in just a bit. So lots to do today. And meantime, Happy New Year. Mark, you are still on the West Coast where you've been spending the holiday.
Indeed. Happy New Year to you guys and to everybody listening. It's great to do our first show. And yes, I am still in the party state.
Is that officially California? Is that?
It is the party state, at least for me anyway.
All right. So a couple of things happened over the break that I feel like we should at least bring up over here. Some big music events over the holidays. And I guess the first thing is on Christmas came the Beyonce Bowl. The Netflix broadcast of Beyonce's halftime show down live from Houston. Since then, they have put it up as a standalone, I believe, 13-minute special.
Yeah, it's about what you got in the Super Bowl.
Beyonce Bowl. That's about the time. So did you guys watch either live or after the fact?
Oh, hell yes.
Yes.
And you guys know I'm not a real big sports fan. The closest I get to enjoying sports is the Super Bowl because the stakes are so high. But that halftime show, now we got a lot to compare to, but for my money, that was one of the greatest halftime shows I ever saw in so many ways.
Well, tell me what you loved.
Well, aside from just loving seeing music from Texas Hold'em live, it sort of combined the spectacle of Beyonce with the spectacle of football. You know, she's done the marching band thing before.
Right.
I think it really works. It's perfect for that venue. She sounded great. She looked great. It was just a win all the way around for me.
I liked it a lot, respected it immensely, and came a little short of loving it. I thought it was incredibly well executed. Perfection.
Yeah.
I mean, the ambition, how many cameras, how many angles, every shot just perfectly done. A million people on the stage, how many different looks, how many different setups, all the stuff inside. But it felt so perfectly honed that it felt a little bit airless to me.
I know what you mean.
It felt a little like there was a little emotion lacking in the service of getting everything right.
Kind of the Eagles syndrome.
Yeah, you felt so aware of the construction of it that it kept me just a little outside of it. Look, to pull that off all from one album, and, as we talked about on our year-end, Cowboy Carter, my favorite album of the year. I love those songs. It totally holds up to getting that big a presentation. I just felt a little bit like the swing was so big, the production swing, that it just left me a little bit cold.
Huh.
That's
interesting because I felt kind of the opposite. I thought she was so engaging. Maybe if I was sitting in the stands, it might have been something different.
Oh, no. Yeah, God only knows. Half of it was, you couldn't see, it was in the tunnel. It wasn't even on the field yet. So,
exactly.
That was more of a TV production than, than any of the Super Bowl ones are, to be fair.
I just felt like, damn, she feels like she's right at home and she is ready to perform for her people. And I felt a connection. That was me.
Roger, did you,
I liked it so much. I saw it after the fact, so I got to just, sit there and watch it and not have the game surrounding it. So it was kind of like the standalone thing, but I liked it better than her halftime Super Bowl performance that she did. I thought this was better executed. And which was really hard to do because you're not relying on a body of work. You're not relying on your greatest hits.
Not a greatest hits, no.
This is a themed specific thing, and it was done so well. I really, really enjoyed it. It just shows the level that Beyonce is at, where it's like, well, I don't need the Super Bowl to invite me to do anything like this again. I'll just do it whenever I want, at any game I want. I can just pick and choose. And I don't know who paid for that, but that was halftime caliber Super Bowl level.
Absolutely.
It was insane.
The production level was, if anything, beyond what we've seen from Super Bowls. And doing it in Texas, of course, was significant. I mean, it wasn't just any game. It hit particularly because of that. I just felt a little bit sort of outside looking in, just a little bit of that feel. So 2 things. One is she teased January 14th as a date for something. I'm going to assume tour dates.
Right.
But we're going to find out because there's still a third album of the trilogy coming, or, we don't know what's coming. So hold on until next week. And your move, Kendrick. Now we got a month till a Super Bowl, and we'll see how they respond to that.
He really has his work cut out for him. Man, to step up and beat something like that is really going to be amazing.
The good part is he's such a different sort of a performer. It's not like it's another big R&B singer.
Yeah.
That would be tough. Like just the whole vibe of what a Kendrick performance. And he's a great performer.
Yeah.
It's going to be big and ambitious and conceptual and all of those things. But it isn't going to feel quite as competitive as if it was, Rihanna coming up next.
Definitely. I thought it was really amazing. And I think, what the hell? I mean, I was comparing her, Beyonce, to the Weeknd halftime show, which was sort of the same sort of thing with lots of people and drums and stuff like that.
Lots off the field.
Off stage, right. But I thought this was, and I didn't really like that much. And I love the Weeknd. That's why I thought that she was similar and just hit it out of the stadium, if you will.
Well, we know you have lots of thoughts on this. Please feel free to let us know. connect@sounduppod.com. And if you're going to check in on that, I think the one other thing I want to make sure to bring up that seems like certainly a lot of people and certainly everybody in my universe was talking about was the release also on Christmas Day of A Complete Unknown, the Bob Dylan biopic starring Timothée Chalamet. And I don't know how much we talked about it. I think I mentioned that I had seen it. I ended up writing a couple of stories about it that came out over the break. Did you guys go or not yet?
I haven't seen it yet. I can't comment.
No, neither can I. And it's on my, but I can't decide if I want to go see that or Robbie Williams as a monkey, which is really, really something I really have to see.
Timothée Chalamet or the animatronic monkey.
Yes.
I get it. I understand.
I did see Wicked. I would say I can comment on that.
You did see? I haven't seen Wicked, so yeah.
I did, and I like musicals. I'm okay. I've been to a bunch and stuff. This, I had my problems with it. It's Cynthia Erivo and Ariana Grande, jaw dropping. I mean, the notes that Ariana hits, they shatter glass. It's unbelievable, and they sound fantastic. I think Ariana did a great job. Cynthia Erivo also was really moving. Her performance was moving, and all of that stuff that you can do in a film that you couldn't do on stage, that really made you feel Oz as well as see Oz. And it was really, I think, great. Look, it is what it is. It's a wacky story, and we're used to the golden slippers, or the red shoes, and the wizard and the balloon taking the wizard away. No, that is not the story. This is a complete retelling, and you got to adjust. You got to
Yeah.
I mean,
It's
I
kind
kept
of
on waiting
the
for
origin story, right?
Well, that's what I was waiting. Oh, okay. So how are they going to set this up so that when we stop, we're waiting for the house to come down and crush the Wicked
Well, I
Witch?
think there's a whole other part of the book or another book before that happens.
There's another part 2 coming.
There is a part 2 coming.
I got to assume the other thing, too, is in judging this movie is the three of us are judging this movie as adults when we saw the first one as kids,
Yeah. I mean, the original, that's sort of one thing. And this is just completely different. It's in certain ways a lot darker. I mean, you really get into the psyche of Elphaba, and you really get in, and Ariana Grande is just a bitch. I mean, she is. I mean, that's her character.
Right.
And, so these things are like, wait, the good witch, Glinda, is a bitch? We have to readjust quite a bit. But the songs are great. They're Broadway songs. They're not pop songs. But the songs are great. The performances are great. And the makeup is great. The settings, the set design is great. The effects are great. Oh, it's a movie. And that, I think, it's probably going to, run away with tons. How did it do with the Golden Globes? I didn't hear.
Nearly shut out.
And totally shut out was a complete unknown.
And speaking of it's a movie, and speaking of origin stories, very quickly on A Complete Unknown, and you guys will need to see it somewhere in here.
Oh, for sure.
I went in. Obviously, I went in ready to hate this. I mean, of course, like you couldn't be more skeptical. And I have to say, I think it's really good. I think that the performances are consistently strong. I think Chalamet absolutely does pull off the part. I think Ed Norton is fantastic as Pete Seeger. I think that's the performance of the film. I think he's great. And I don't think that it has anything profound to say about Bob Dylan.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I don't think that there's some great reveal take on this is what this really is. It tells a story. It tells a story of this kid who comes to New York and sort of looking for his identity and, becomes this thing that he becomes. And then everybody expects him to just be that. And he doesn't want to just be that. He wants to be able to be something else. And that takes us into Newport. And, you, as many have done, there are absolutely there's timeline stuff that's, squished and flipped around and all of that. But there's nothing that bothered me in terms of inaccuracy. It's all stuff that happened and stuff that's clearly moved around to be able to move the story forward. And it's not, as we've said 1,000 times, it's not a documentary. There are multiple documentaries about this phase of Bob Dylan's life and career. Those exist. You should watch Martin Scorsese's No Direction Home. You should watch a film called The Other Side of the Mirror. That's all of his Newport performances. Those things are there. This is doing something different. And I think doing it pretty decently well. So much to my surprise, I do recommend it. I wrote a couple of things. I know Roger posted to our social accounts an interview that I did with James Mangold, who's the director of the film, that I did for Esquire, and then a piece I did for the New York Times comparing the Newport 65 as it's portrayed in the film with what actually happened at Newport 65.
Yeah.
So those are there if you're curious to check them out. And again, I know a lot of you went and saw it. I heard from some of you, but send us your thoughts on Beyonce, on Wicked, on A Complete Unknown. Connect at sounduppod.com as voicemails or as written statements, and we will share them with the world.
How interesting is it that this movie comes out smack in the middle of while the Springsteen movie is being filmed?
Yes.
Going on at this moment.
The whole wave of, next year, the biopics, the Michael Jackson biopic,
right?
The Springsteen Making Nebraska, Nat King Cole, there's a million of them, as we've said, but, largely because of everybody selling their publishing and their catalogs to these big companies. publishers or otherwise. Everybody's looking to exploit those catalogs. It's not a coincidence that we're seeing this big wave of biopics, plus coming off of still the Bohemian Rhapsody, but then the success of the Bob Marley movie this past year. There's market, there's opportunity. They're not all going to work, but some of them are going to work. So it's a thing we're going to be talking about, I think, a lot through 2025. If
Alan is saying that the Tim Chalamet portrayal of Dylan is good, that's good enough for me.
Within the Dylan fan and super fan and this community, generally people have been very supportive and enthusiastic about it. There are a few who have been outraged and just said it completely. I just don't think you can say it completely misses. Like, you may not love it, everything may not work, but I don't think there's a way that even if you're a big fan, you look at this and just say they screwed it up.
One of the things, and this is sort of a theme going forward in biopics, the Saturday Night Live movie, which I also saw a week or so ago, it's that couple of hours before the first show. And this is, the lead up to that folk festival, and to him betraying everybody, I suppose. Is it portrayed in that way?
Well, it's portrayed as the controversy. Not to give it away too much. Somebody does yell Judas, which of course didn't happen in Newport, but
that was in the UK, right?
Here in Manchester, and so again, that's where like things get compressed. But they get compressed in the service of this was what this all sort of felt like at the time that he's going through this transition.
But it's not like Freddie Mercury comes out as gay and plays Live Aid on the same day.
Right. Makes up with his family, comes out as gay, reunites with a band that he wasn't broken up with.
But part of that is, I think, Mark, to the point you're making, which is that these are not cradle to grave full life biopics. These are about certain eras or moments or periods, which I do think in general is a much more successful way. I think we've seen it's really hard to do somebody's whole life in 2 hours. Like it's crazy.
Also, while you're trying to capitalize on someone's catalog, why use it all in one shot? Now you can still do another Dylan movie.
Right. Anyway, eager, but I was surprised at how favorable the Dylan fan community has been about it, and eager to hear your thoughts, and eager for you guys to see it and weigh in. So, all
right, you ready? Should we do some news?
Yeah, and I think speaking of stuff we're going to be talking about in 2025, let's look at where we're going to start here.
All right, we will jump into it. At the beginning of each year, we immediately start to look ahead, especially at what are going to be the big albums coming in the next 12 months. And while I have been relaxing here in the sun in California over the break, Alan, I know that you have been working hard compiling a list of the 10 most anticipated albums of 2025 for Esquire.
Yes, this piece just went up, I think over the weekend or on Friday. And yes, I was working on it last week between the holidays. Never stops. Freelance life never stops. And though, as we all know, it's really hard to look too far down the field. It's not the way it used to be, where people would announce albums months in advance and put out the single and tease the promotion. And, most of the time we find out about big albums, if we're lucky, a week ahead of when they come out, sometimes an hour before they come out, sometimes not at all before they come out, like the Kendrick album. But there are enough that at least seem like either they've been announced or it's been announced that they're coming, that I was still able to put something together for this Esquire column. A couple of the ones that we know, and a couple of the ones that we know that are coming very soon within the next few weeks. There's this posthumous Mac Miller album, which is especially interesting because they did one posthumous Mac Miller album a couple of years ago, and it was the biggest selling album that ever came
that
from
he ever
him.
Put out, yeah.
So somebody that people, speaking of Ariana Grande, somebody who people continue to discover was what Mac did before his death. And this is an album that was mostly done and supposed to come out in the mid-decade. 2014, 2015 was supposed to come out. Interestingly, featuring a then unknown rising young singer named SZA, who sings on a couple of tracks. So that album is coming out the 17th. The following week, the new album from The Weeknd is coming out, the third in his trilogy After Hours in 2020, Dawn FM in 2022, and now Hurry Up Tomorrow coming out January 24th, which will be accompanied in the spring by a feature film, a psychological thriller with Jenna Ortega and Barry Keoghan co-starring with The Weeknd. So that's coming. Also, we have a date, at least for now, coming in May on the Lana Del Rey album, which is now titled The Right Person Will Stay. It was initially called Lasso. It was initially going to be a country album. It seems like she's still headlining Stagecoach. So she hasn't totally backed off, but it seems like it's a little bit like, well, my stuff's always been kind of singer-songwritery. So she did work with some Nashville. Luke Laird, who's a big Nashville writer-producer, worked on some of this album. She is still largely working with Jack Antonoff and her usual team. So that's coming in May, and will be interesting to see how different or not it turns out to be.
It's an interesting list, and I'm with you on every single one. Is there a reason that you didn't mention the U2 album?
We just still don't have any, I mean, there's some that are still very up in the air. They're coming sometime.
Yeah. I mean, you have so many TBAs on the list that I thought
anything that I put in here with a TBA, at least they've kind of said it'll be this year. Now we'll see if that turns out to be true or not, but they've at least had something to say, like the Paul McCartney record. We knew Paul McCartney was recording with Andrew Watt. That's how he ended up in the studio with the Stones when he did those tracks on the Hackney Diamonds album. But he just did on his site a Q&A with his fans, or on Ask Me Anything or whatever, and said his New Year's resolution was to get back into the album and finish it.
Yeah, I saw that.
So that's why I would put it on the list. The Lady Gaga album, she had said February. Nothing's been announced for February, but she had said February. She put out that one single, Disease, and that, though we don't have anything for certain, there is reason to believe is coming. Madonna at the end of the year said that she is recording new music, working with Stuart Price, longtime collaborator and producer, and says, I'm so excited to share this music with you. Who wants to hear new music in 2025? So she's putting a year on it. We have that. And then the others to mention, Elton John, we saw in the Golden Globes on Sunday, sort of making a joke about his vision loss. So hopefully meaning that that's improving, or at least, whatever, that he's
dealing with it.
He's dealing with it.
Yeah.
There was an announcement at the end of the year from the Bruce Springsteen team saying, interesting quote, saying there would be releases in 2025, plural, including a look back at Springsteen's storied recording career featuring never before heard material. So people are thinking, was it going to be, there's long been talk about a sequel to the Tracks.
I was going to say, is this Tracks 2?
Yeah. So is this Tracks 2? That's sort of what people are guessing, but that's all that we know. And finally, later this year, Spinal Tap 2 will be coming out, complete with a soundtrack. Rob Reiner just did an interview, said that there is music from Elton John, there is music from Paul McCartney.
Cannot wait.
We know that Garth Brooks, Lars Ulrich, Questlove are in the film. We don't know if there's music coming from them. And Rob Reiner mentioned a new Derek Smalls track called Rockin' in the Urn, all about the fact that even after he's dead, he's still going to be performing. So those are among the things we are looking forward to in 2025. Again, we turn to you guys. What do you know about? What are you looking forward to? Any of these or any that you've heard news of in your world? connect@sounduppod.com. Email us your thoughts.
Woof. All right. I'm so looking forward to Spinal Tap. Good Lord. All right. What else do we have in the news? Flava Flav.
So we got a bunch of news from Flavor Flav over the holiday. Make of that what you will. The first thing to say is that Flavor made his debut as a sports mascot when he emerged as Tubby, the googly-eyed mayonnaise mascot for Duke's Mayo at the Duke's Mayo Bowl in Charlotte, North Carolina.
So what do you make of that?
Flavor Flav, let me just read this sentence and then we can move on. Flavor Flav dumped 5 gallons of mayonnaise on top of winning coach PJ Fleck, whose Minnesota Golden Gophers beat the Virginia Tech Hokies 24-10.
Is there is there something to be made of heavy duty artists from the rap genre suddenly shilling for everything you can imagine, Snoop Dogg?
Well, yes.
That says something about society and where we are today.
And similarly, it was a big sports year for, Flavor emerging as the big champion of first the women's college basketball,
Yeah.
and then the women's water polo team, who he
Right.
sponsored to go to the Paris Olympics this year. So he has planted his flag in the sports world.
Amazing.
So there's that. In other Flavor Flav news, make of this what you will. He did a big interview with Rolling Stone with a lot of stuff that's worth reading, including talking about his son Karma. I never knew that his son was named Karma. Now we know that his son is named Karma. And also that when he dies, he hopes to have a clock built into his tombstone. He talked about his favorite and most expensive clocks that he has worn throughout his esteemed career.
So is it going to be a working clock? Like
He wants it to be a working clock, apparently. Yes, built into the top of the stone. That was what he said. So that's going to live on forever. And finally, in my favorite piece of Flavor Flav holiday news, I don't know if you have been following that Sesame Street is potentially at risk. Their contract with, I guess, HBO is running out. Nobody has come in to pick up future episodes, future streaming or distribution of Sesame Street. Into the breach jumps Flavor Flav, who tweeted, "We gotta save Sesame Street. This is Big Bird and Elmo and how generations learn to count and spell. How we supposed to live, laugh, love if we ain't taught how."
2 words. Puppet strike.
So let's see. Let's see what Flavor is able to elevate to try to rescue Sesame Street. This is tragic news if we were to lose Sesame Street. No, there's no joke here. This is painful to think about. And if it takes Flavor Flav to raise this, let's see what he is able to conjure. So lots of activity.
Can't imagine a homeless snuffleupagus walking around the streets,
Right?
No,
God.
we can't have that.
No. Finally, I know one you must be excited about, Alan. It's this lost Neil Young album from the Magic era, 77. Man.
77. Oceanside Countryside, a new release from 1977 that Neil Young has announced as part of the ongoing and endless series of reissues, re-releases, reconfigurations. So this album is half recorded in Florida and Malibu. That would be the ocean side, and half in Nashville, the countryside. Sort of leading into some of the songs wound up on American Stars and Bars. Some of the songs here wound up a couple of years later, going on whatever came out in 1980. Now I'm forgetting what came out in 1980. There's a couple of songs that he has released on previous archival stuff. There's early versions of some things that ended up on Rust Never Sleeps that he played on that tour, that these were the original studio recordings for. So I don't know, was this ever an album, or was this, here's some stuff I did around this time that we'll put together, and now as it could have been an album. I guess everything sort of could have been an album. So that is coming out. He put up one song on the streaming services last week. Very, very country, very Nashville sounding song, kind of like where he would go with the Old Ways record a few years after that down the road.
And these are not re-recorded? These are the recordings?
No, these are the originals. And in fact, there's some that were on one of the archives records, but had Nicolette Larson singing backup on them. But these are the actual originals before, with just Neil singing without the Nicolette part. So
like new stuff.
You can't tell the players without a scorecard.
Gotcha.
But on top of that, Neil Young also announced there's a new album coming in 2025. So this was the band that I actually saw him play with. He did a couple of shows. He had to play Farm Aid. He had to put a band together to play Farm Aid. So he put this Chrome Dreams band together. That's Micah Nelson, one of Willie Nelson's kids, Spooner Oldham from the old, Muscle Shoals days.
He's alive.
And then the rhythm section from Promise of the Real. And he did Farm Aid, and then he did 2 shows in Port Chester at the Capitol Theater. I went to one of those shows that really did feel like kind of tryout shows for this band. I guess he liked them, because he made an album with them. And here is the fact, Mark, the producer on this album, I don't know if you read through this piece, Lou Adler produced this album. Lou Adler is 91 years old.
Yeah. Yeah.
Rock
Amazing.
and Roll Hall of Famer, Mamas and the Papas producer, produced Tapestry for Carole King. I mean, legend. But 91 years old and still going in the studio to do sessions.
Man, we should all live as long and be as productive as that dude. That's amazing. It really is.
But talk about going the opposite way when you have people like the Stones and all these other artists going to Andrew Watt now, going to this young hot producer. Neil Young goes the totally other way.
Interesting.
I have a friend who is listening systematically to the entire Neil Young catalog right now. He does this as projects. He'll choose an artist and listen to everything. When he chose Neil, I kept saying, you'll never catch up.
Right.
The time you get to Forward, he's going to have put 4 more albums out. You're never going to get there. So, of course, I was writing him over the weekend like, yep, you think you're making headway? He just put you 2 in the hole.
So I wanted to mention, I don't know if you know more about this. He talked in that story about appearing at Glastonbury. So
I can't, again, he was scheduled for, did you follow all of this?
Yeah, well, as much as possible. He was going to play and then he pulled out and, then he went back. Right.
I hadn't yet gotten around to the reasoning when he said that Glastonbury was too much of sort of a corporate shell and that the BBC was controlling it too much, and so he wasn't going to play. I hadn't read anything more than that when he announced, okay, I didn't really understand, so it's cool, I'm going to play.
Yeah, what he was displeased with the management? Is that correct?
I don't know if it was sponsorship stuff or, restrictions that were being put up or I don't know why. I don't know what. This is Neil. He does this stuff all the time.
This is Mr. Integrity. This note's for you, man.
He'll tilt at windmills,
and
he'll be the first to say it, and you got to love it. But this one lasted about 24 hours. And then it was interesting because he was like, oh, I guess I misunderstood. That was the part that was interesting. Wasn't they changed something? It was, oh, I read that wrong. So oops, I'm okay.
Well, I'm hoping this could be the year that I go to Glastonbury, if that's happening.
Well, let's see that happen. All right. So there's some stuff.
There's some. We got more, though. We're going to take a fast break here. When we come back, a guy that up until a few weeks ago, I had no idea he was in his own band. From the Sopranos and umpteen other projects, Michael Imperioli is up to talk to us about his band and what is up for them. That's up next. We are back at Sound Up. Of course, Mark Goodman and Alan Light, and a very special guest. Now, you're probably looking at him right now if you're on something with video. If you're not, you may know our guest from his performance as Spider in Martin Scorsese's Goodfellas, or maybe his supporting role in Jungle Fever, or Bad Boys, or The Basketball Diaries. He co-wrote the screenplay for Summer of Sam with Spike Lee. I haven't even touched on his directing accomplishments, but our guest is probably best known for his role as Christopher Moltisanti in the long-running HBO series The Sopranos. But what you may not know is that Michael Imperioli is a crazy music fan and sings lead in his own band called ZOPA. 2020 was the first album, the debut, La Dolce Vita. 2021, ZOPA headlined the Freak Out Festival in Seattle. Best of all, ZOPA's new album, Diamond Vehicle, out on February 21st of this year. Welcome, Michael Imperioli, to Sound Up. Great to have you.
Thank you for having me. Pleasure to be here.
Good to see you.
You gotta let us know how did this come about? I know that the band has been around for quite a while.
Yeah.
But yet your debut album just came out a couple of years ago. So catch us up. Who's in the band? Why do you know them?
The band formed in 2006. Was actually the third band I was in. The first one was in the 80s in New York, and the second one was in the 90s. And then I wasn't playing with anyone for quite a while. And then a friend of mine, Michael Ty, was a guitar player with Jeff Buckley in his band. And before that, he was an actor, and we had done a movie together and done some plays together. And his brother is a drummer. And I ran into him at a party right when I was, thinking of, finding some musicians to play with. And he told me about his brother who, was a drummer. And I looked him up, and we had known each other a little bit, and we got together, and he introduced me to Elijah Amerton, who is a bass player. Who Omotai and Elijah Amerton went to school together, high school together, and had played. So we started doing a lot of shows and writing songs back in 2006, and then we recorded the first album in 2012, but we didn't release it until the pandemic. Actually, just we really weren't sure how to release it, and we were on a hiatus then, so we weren't playing any shows. So after we recorded the record, it kind of sat on a shelf for a while. And then we started playing together again right after the pandemic, 2021, and started touring and doing shows and writing new material, and then recorded a new album about a year and a half ago. It's finally coming out this year.
Now, you've told the story a lot when you talk about when you do Sopranos stuff or when you do White Lotus stuff that, you kind of fell into the acting side. But I'm curious, you said you were playing in bands in the 80s and 90s. How did you fall into the music side? And, was that a parallel track with the acting back then? Like what was in your head when you were starting out?
The first band I was in was with someone I was in acting school with, who already was a musician, who was studying acting. And we hooked up with two other musicians, and it was really like a no wave, kind of in the no wave genre of music. And we just started, playing a lot. In the 80s in New York, there was a lot of, in the Lower East Side and East Village, there was a lot of crossover between artistic disciplines like theater and performance art and film and music, even writing and poetry and things like that. And a lot of people were doing, more than one thing. So I that was very much the kind of melting pot I kind of grew up in in my late teens and early 20s.
You were wandering around in the village at that point. Yeah. Yeah.
Totally.
And is it that, oops, I'm an actor, I really want to be a rock star? Is that what's happening?
I was studying acting and doing like experimental theater and playing music.
Were you looking for a way to sort of press all of that together?
Not really combine it. I just was doing it. You know what I mean? I didn't really think I'm going to be a rock star or even a famous actor. It was just finding a way to do those things in, small clubs in New York and little theaters and independent movies. Those goals seem very realistic because I knew people who were doing it already. I didn't really know famous actors and I didn't know famous rock stars really, but I did know people who were doing stuff in a very independent way.
That was what it felt like at the time. I was living around the corner from you downtown at that time. And yeah, it was the barrier. There were spaces, there were opportunities. There were ways to be able to create stuff that's different than the world we're in now. And even with this new ZOPA music, you talk about references for this band like Galaxy 500 and Dinosaur Jr. and some of the bands. It feels like still there's something out of that time and that feel that's what's kind of driving you.
Yeah, there was definitely a lot of bands in the 80s that made big impressions on me as a teenager. The Smiths and REM and Echo and the Bunnymen and bands like that. And then later on, I started getting into more earlier music, like the earlier, like punk stuff or CBGB stuff like Television and Patti Smith and bands like that. But, we've been playing together and known each other for a while now. So I think that's where the rewards really start happening, that you can lean on each other and create something specific sound-wise because, we know each other so well and kind of support each other musically a lot, support each other's ideas and communicate really well.
How does the writing happen? The first single that's out now is Still Life. You've said that song is a culmination of the search for the sound that you have been looking for over all of this time. So
that's true.
Can you characterize what that sound is and how you guys work together?
And you're somebody who's done a lot of writing, who wrote episodes of Sopranos, who's written for stage, who's written other kinds of things. How did that come together for what this is?
Since ZOPA is a trio and we don't want like our live sound to be drastically different than what you do in the studio, right? In the studio, there's always temptations to put lots of layers in and lots of different sounds. But then, since it's only three of us, you don't want that to be very drastically different when people come to see you live. So I like the idea of a trio because it's only 3 people as opposed to 4 or 5. So you're, dealing with 3 schedules and 3 egos rather than 4 or 5. And to me, it always just seemed,
The logistical reasons here.
yeah, it always seemed a lot more manageable. But Galaxy 500 was a band, was a trio that I thought did things really interestingly with sound, even though there was only 3. It was never like a singer-songwriter with a rhythm section. It was always 3 very unique musicians approaching their instruments in very idiosyncratic and original ways, creating like a very big sound for just these 3 instruments. And that was a band that really inspired our direction, I think, at least from my point of view.
You got a Lou Reed thing. I mean, you've got 2 covers on the album. You've got Ocean and
right.
Heroin cover. But you wrote a piece of fiction about Lou Reed. I mean, clearly this guy's a touchstone for you.
Yeah.
Obviously the ultimate New York artist in a lot of ways. But what is it that keeps pulling you back to Lou above all? He
never like rested on his laurels. Like he was always like challenging himself and discovering, new ways of expressing himself. And I think he was an extremely honest songwriter, a very underrated guitar player. And I thought what he tried to do with rock and roll, to approach it from a more like literary angle, I mean, he always wanted to, like his favorite writers, like Hubert Selby and Nelson Algren and Edgar Allan Poe and people like that, kind of bring some of that sensibility into rock music, which I thought he did really well. And we wound up becoming friends in the last like decade or so of his life. And it was very meaningful to me that because I was such a fan, he was such a hero for a long time, to get to know him a bit was for me very special.
Can you talk a little bit about what you might have learned from Lou Reed?
I think it's about being true to yourself, and true to who you are, and that's enough. And to find a way to express that despite your limitations, right? I mean, his voice was very, idiosyncratic. You wouldn't say like he was had a great range as a singer or, can hit all these notes or, as a guitar player, he was also very specific. He wasn't like Eddie Van Halen or any kind of shredder, but he could play really distinctive leads, but also his sense of rhythm and the way he created his songs and his chord structures were just phenomenal. As a songwriter, I think he is one of the tops. But I think it's about, staying true to yourself. I mean, that's at least what I got from him.
And him crashing through at a time, the stuff that he was writing about, like Heroin, for God's sake. That blew people's minds when that came out. You don't talk about that stuff.
Yeah, way ahead of his time. I mean, he was really talking about things that he was seeing in his world. And it was, now nothing's really shocking anymore. I mean, we've explored every taboo and every, in music and music videos, you've seen, people have pushed the envelope up. Back then at Velvet Underground days, the subject matter, and the worlds that he was describing and writing about was not something rock and roll was really known.
Yeah, and pushing like crazy, like Sister Ray, songs like that were just like, what the hell is this guy doing?
Well, you're saying sonically and subject wise.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So when it comes time, you're a musician, you're playing, you're sort of meeting people. Was there a mission either for you or for the 3 of you? Was like, we want to form a band because here's where we want to go. And you now say you've reached that sound.
The mission was, to be able to play shows and write songs and experience that, that kind of expression and creativity. I can't say there was something I had in mind that I was going for. It's something that evolves over time. But I think, I was always a bit self-conscious as a guitar player and conscious of my limitations and things. And then you realize, well, it's, like I don't really look at myself as a singer. My whatever vocal contribution I do in ZOPA is one component of ZOPA's sound, so there's a guitar and there's a bass and the drums and my voice and Elijah's voice. I don't really look at myself as a singer who, would show up somewhere else and sing a song with somebody or that, sing the national anthem or something like that. But as a member of ZOPA, I understand how to use my voice to contribute to the song and the type of sound that we make, if that makes sense.
Part of it's a piece within.
Yeah.
What the total
Yeah,
is.
it's a piece within, and that's really most important, what we try to do as a band. Like, again, rather than, I think sometimes people might expect, especially if you're known for something else, as I am, that I'm a singer-songwriter and they're the rhythm section, backing up my songs. And it's really not that at all. It's very much complete collaboration. Like you mentioned like the songwriting process before, Mark. It was like sometimes I'll come in with a chord progression and a little bit of some lyrical ideas, but the songs don't really happen until we start playing them together.
Right.
And then it's like, they're constructed as a unit rather than like, this is a song and I want you guys to play on it. It's like, it's very, very, very collaborative.
So I'm curious, and I want to not sound just stupid asking this question, but you sort of returned to stage acting recently. Last year, you did the Ibsen play on Broadway with Jeremy Strong, Enemy of the People. There's a relationship between acting and making music on stage, and I would imagine there's a different relationship between acting on stage and getting up and singing songs than there is doing films or TV or something. I mean, what you're getting from an audience, what you're getting in the spontaneity of it. Did making more music bounce into your stage acting? Is there anything that you brought back from that as now you're presumably going off to play shows like that? How did those pieces work together?
Well, stage acting, really, a lot of it, maybe the majority of it's about the voice, because we didn't use microphones. We were in a theater, about 1,000-seat theater, and had to project. So, when you're projecting that way so the whole theater can hear you, it's completely unnatural. Right. Nobody speaks like that. I would never speak to you like this, or like, it's a completely unnatural way of speaking that you have to make natural. So the voice has to kind of carry so much of the character and the emotion and the attentions and all those things, which is very similar to singing. Singing is not your natural way of speech by any means, right? But you have to use this kind of unnatural method to transmit real emotion, and sound. So in that way, I found a lot of similarities, the way you're using your voice. Whereas film and television acting, much more just naturalistic, how you speak in normal life. There's not, you don't have to kind of alter it in that way.
And then a little bit of a flip of that is we had, a couple of months ago, our friend Alex Gibney was on talking about the David Chase doc that he made, and we were talking about music in The Sopranos, and obviously a huge piece of what the show was. And especially for you as a writer for the show, did the ways that David worked with music within The Sopranos, did it make you think about music differently? Were there things that you took away from the ways that he worked those things together that that you hear different now?
There was a little bit, like in the writing scripts for The Sopranos, there was a little bit of contributions of musical ideas. Not a ton, really. A lot of that just came in post and in the editing, and how they were going to edit the scenes, where there was space for that and how they would underscore it. But I really loved David's willingness to find new music and bands that, there's a lot of like really well-known, like Dylan and Van Morrison and Rod Stewart and, the Faces and all, Keith, the Stones. But there was also a lot of like bands that people didn't know, that were new, that they would seek out like new sounds and new bands.
That band that did the theme song. Nobody heard of them before.
Nobody heard of them before. Right. A3. Yeah. Exactly. And they used them for the theme.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Kicked ass.
That's and I think that was a really great quality and really helped the show. The music, they used the music really well.
For sure.
Unparalleled.
So you I guess you got your dream here. You got your band, you got a record coming out. How's the tour booking? Yeah. You got booking, you happening? You're gonna, do the Taylor Swift route, or what are you thinking?
The Eras tour is coming.
Eras,
We're just going to play shows and, make music.
So do you have things booked yet?
Yeah, we have some shows booked this month, and we're just starting to plan out like the second half of this year. Mm-hmm. So, yeah, we'll be touring. We did quite a bit of the last couple of years in the West Coast, Midwest, Canada, and a couple of dates in Europe, and lots on the East Coast. But yeah, we'll be playing shows.
This thing. I know we got a couple lightning round questions we wanted to ask, but before you go, did I read right? You're shooting a film about a Neil Diamond tribute band. Is this happening?
Yeah, this is based on a documentary called Song Sung Blue about this couple. They became a husband and wife, and he was a Neil Diamond impersonator, and she was a Patsy Cline impersonator, and they became local like legends in Milwaukee in the Midwest in the 90s. They actually opened for Pearl Jam when Pearl Jam went to Milwaukee. And there was a documentary made about them because they filmed a lot of their lives. He's not alive anymore. She is. His name was Mike Sardina, and her name was Claire Sardina. So Hugh Jackman and Kate Hudson play the couple. And I did some guitar. I played the guitar player in their band. I played a lot of guitar in the movie.
And it's your playing.
It's me playing. Yeah. It's me playing on stage. Yeah.
That's amazing. All right. So we started something new here on Sound Up. We have a couple of questions we're just going to use like for a month or so that we're going to ask our guests. Whatever comes to your mind first, that's kind of where we're going here. All music stuff. So here we go. Question number 1. What's the last song you listened to? Like even before you picked up here today, what was the last thing you listened to?
Oh, Steve Conte, his newest song, Steve Conte, who played with the New York Dolls in their later incarnation. He's a good friend of mine. I was just listening. I forget the title of it, but it's off his new album.
That's awesome.
He was one of the top, on Little Steven's Underground Garage, one of the top 10 songs of the year. He was voted, but he's a really good. We've done some shows with Steve over the years.
Yeah. I used to see him up in my neighborhood. He used to live right 2 blocks from me. All right, there's one.
All right. What was your very first concert?
Jethro Tull.
Sure.
Which album?
It was an album called Broadsword and the Beast, which I guess came out in like 80 or 81. And I was like 14, and a bunch of us went to see him. And my fat's cousin lived in Long Island, so we all went down to Long Island to the Coliseum to see Jethro Tull.
Do you remember the show? You remember it?
Kind of. Yeah, it was very exciting.
Pretty exciting.
I bet.
First rock show, pretty exciting.
All right. Vinyl, CD, stream, or who gives a crap?
Oh, I haven't listened to CDs in a long time, but I do listen to vinyl, and I listen to a lot of radio and streaming.
Okay.
But the CDs, I haven't listened to CDs in a long time.
Do you have a vinyl collection? How many records?
Oh, I don't know.
A lot.
Not a ton, but I should have more.
Not a crazy collector guy. No.
I listen. I'm not a nut collector, but I do like I do like vinyl. Well, I like it best.
All right. Well, this album is finally coming out February 21st. ZOPA, the name of the album, Diamond Vehicle. And do you even a first tour date? Do you have one that we can promote for your folks?
We're playing in Washington, D.C. next week at Pearl Street Warehouse. And then Philadelphia on the 16th and New York on the 17th.
Off and running.
Excellent. Off and running. All right. Michael Imperioli, good luck with this record. Good luck with ZOPA.
Thanks so much, man.
We're going to be looking for you out there on tour.
Thanks for having me today. I appreciate it.
All right, we are back. It's a whole new year of new music. And as always on Sound Up, we're going to give you our new music picks before we roll out of here. Alan, we'll start with you. What do you got?
Couple quick things. Obviously, it's been slow. Not a lot of people putting out stuff over the holiday weeks, though there was some big, new Bad Bunny music, and there were some songs from some stars. But a couple of things to mention. One is I've talked before about my fondness for this very mysterious UK soul group Sault, S-A-U-L-T, Sault, who operate under a total cloak of disguise. Nobody's quite sure who's in them. This producer Inflow is sort of the brains behind it. And they tend to just kind of put stuff out with no advance word and nothing. And that's what they did, I guess week before last. I don't know. A new EP, I guess it's an EP. It's like 32 minutes long, called Acts of Faith. It's very hard to pull out a song because it all kind of runs mean, there's, I think, 9 separate tracks, but they all kind of run together. So I don't know that I'm going to give you a song. Roger, you can pull whatever to put up on our playlist.
Okay.
But it's kind of meant to be listened to beginning to end. And just like the stuff they do, it's very vibey, really cool, soulful, beautiful, sort of out of time draws. It's got to feel, for those who know, like Roy Ayers' Ubiquity, like that sort of spacey, floating, a little bit of sort of a Bill Withers, thing that's going on, like that kind of a feel to the stuff that they do, very airy. And I think it's great. And I think, everything they do is really interesting. And then the other thing I'll mention is after a long run up waiting to see, SZA put out a deluxe edition of the SOS album called Lola. She's been talking about it for a while. And I just don't think people still appreciate how massive the SOS album, like that thing is still a top 20, if not top 10 album, years after it came out, a juggernaut of a record for SZA. Honestly, the new stuff, the bonus stuff sounds to me like stuff that wasn't good enough to make the album. Like, I don't love a lot of this. It's fine. A lot of it sounds kind of samey, and SOS does not sound samey. So I don't think a lot of it is that great, but there is a song called Scorsese Baby Daddy that's got a little more of a rock thing. It's not as sort of pop punk as some of the stuff that came out on the original album, but sort of guitar forward, more sort of a rock track that's a different sort of a feel. So as a SZA fan, that's one that I would point you to out of the block of songs that just came out. So that's what I got.
All right. Roger?
I went through a bunch of stuff this morning, and I know the beginning of the year is slow, but it didn't feel like 2025 was getting off to a great start with new music. I clicked on a couple of, popular names like Katy Perry and Will Smith, all who have songs out, and it sounded like everyone got a rhyming dictionary for Christmas. It was just like listening to Dr. Seuss songs, and I'm like, I can't. This is just killing me. And I almost gave up looking for a song, and then I was on Spotify's new music list, and I found this band called Best Friend, which I've never heard of. They've only been around for a few years. It's a duo. And the music to me sounds like, and it's funny, I was thinking of when we had Rob Sheffield on, when we were talking about Taylor Swift and what he wanted next from her. And he said, I'd like her to do a rock album. To me, this sounds like what Taylor Swift would sound like if she did a rock album, or a rock like alt type album. It's very pop rocky. It's very cool, but it's very like Taylor Swifty type lyrics. And the only info I could get on the band was from Spotify, and the blurb says this: Best Friend is Stacy and Kaylan writing songs about arguing about drum tones from 1,000 miles apart. That's it. That is all I know about this band, but you can find them on Instagram at Best Friend IRL or on Spotify. But I really like the track. And the track is called You Look Just Like Me.
Roger, I'm kind of in the same boat as you. Slow beginning of the year situations. I'm looking all over the place for stuff. That Sault record, I listened to it. I thought, how do I include this? So I'm glad you did. I also just randomly, just listening to stuff, looking for stuff that I loved, stumbled across a band that I had never heard of before. They formed in 2017, and they put out a couple of songs here and there, and a couple of albums, but they're so sort of under the radar. They don't even have a wiki page. But what I could tell you is the band is called Bleach Garden. Bleach Garden. And the song is called Born to Be Empty. It's a 4-piece. They're a band out of Atlanta. And I sort of came and went with grunge, sort of in and out. I love Nirvana.
Oh my God, they are a grunge band with that name? Taken from the Nirvana album and Soundgarden? Jesus.
Yeah.
Ow.
Wow.
You got it.
I was going to make the joke.
Influences: Nirvana, Soundgarden, Alice in Chains, the Melvins, Zeppelin, Sabbath, and many, many more. And the song Born to Be Empty is a really great, Roger, it's right up your street for sure.
Okay.
And it's a great rock song. And I thought, oh, wait a second, do I want to talk about these people if like the last 10 things that they put out sucked? And they're really great. They're in that vein. Mm-hmm. And if that's what you're into, I loved it. I thought they sounded really, really cool. So
sounds like flannel.
Bleach Garden.
Well, they're not hiding it.
Right. Gotta love it. So, all right. So that's it. That's our new music picks. And that's going to wrap it up for this edition of Sound Up. Check us out on socials for exclusive content and more. It's all at SoundUpPod.
Please give us a 5-star review on your streaming service of choice. Like our Facebook page. Subscribe to our YouTube page. Email us at connect@sounduppod.com.
Sound Up is hosted by Mark Goodman and Alan Light, produced by Roger That Media, distributed by Revolver Podcasts. Theme music by Smile from Tokyo. For more information, go to sounduppod.com. Roger that.